I'm going to say something kind of crazy and extremely controversial. I think that season 2 of Arcane is the love child of Transformers The Last Night and Game of Thrones season 8. Now, before I continue with that thought, I'd like to mention that Arcane season 2 is a much better show than both of those, than Game of Thrones season 8 and obviously Transformers The Last Night. However, I think the problems with season 2 are very apparent and share many similarities to those two to that movie and that show. And I think we should dive into that, and also why season 2, in my opinion, is significantly worse than the first season and really lost a lot of the charm that season 1 laid out. So let's get into it. When a show crams too many ideas into one season, the result is rarely satisfying. Remembering movies like Transformers The Last Night or the chaos of a season that was Game of Thrones Season 8, while Arcane Season 2 is miles better, it's hard to ignore that it kind of shares a similarly rushed, overstuffed vibe that both of those entertainment pieces offered. And I think we should talk about why. To understand why Season 2 falls short, we need to remember what made Season 1 a masterpiece. And I think it's pretty obvious. The animation's amazing, the art style is damn near perfect, the world building incredibly immersive, the characters were given the time of day to grow, and essentially I think what really, at least for me, makes it work, and I think for a lot of people unrecognizably, is how Season 1, even though it is based on League of Legends, is essentially just a political thriller and a family drama. And that's all it is. And there's Jason Victor's plot with just two men trying to make the world a better place. With those three plots, with the political thriller between the two cities, with Vander and Silco, and then the family drama between Vi and Jinx, and then the Heimerdinger, Victor, and Jace's plot, and Jace kind of blending in with that Zahn and Piltover political drama. It all just works in a way that flows naturally and feels very grounded. We know that this world is fantastical. We know it's not supposed to be reminiscent of our world and supposed to be different, but it also feels relatable. We have characters that interact in very honest ways. We know what it's like. We've seen enough shows and know enough people in real life to know what it's like to be the underdog, to be the lower class. We know what high class. We've seen what high class life looks like to people from people from Hollywood. And when we see it in the show, it all feels natural. It feels like it takes place in a real, breathing world. And I think that Season 2 kind of just loses this aspect entirely for this. It sacrifices it for the sake of the second act, or I should say, the higher stakes. And I didn't know about this, but apparently Season 2 has a different writer, which makes a ton of sense, because the writing isn't bad in Season 2. It's just not good either. It's not compelling as much as Season 1 is, and it's hard to follow up to something that is so pinnacle, right? Like, you have the peak here, and once you get to the top of something, it feels like you can either stay consistently the same or slightly below, or you're just going to go downhill. Now, I don't think Season 2 is bad. I think it's very entertaining, and the art style is still amazing, but it loses its focus. It loses the plot of the first season almost immediately. We were thrown back in to the world, and the actions of Jinx are almost completely, entirely forgotten. The blown up, and it's a big. The council gets blown up. It's a big drive for Caitlyn because her mom dies, right? But at the same time, it's so fast, and there's these time jumps that happen in the show where I legitimately didn't even know that there was a time jump. It doesn't explain it to you. It just happens, and it just, oh, okay, we're moving on. And and you can immediately tell within the first 30 minutes of season 2 that this is different. And it works for some people, but it didn't work for me. It's very focused on the plot over the story. And what I mean by that is plot and story are two separate things entirely. They obviously go together, right? You can't have a story without a plot. There has to be something to hook us, to gain our attention, right? To get us in. What are the stakes? What are the things that make us want to watch this? But when you focus too much on this one or the other, this can happen on very story-driven series and books and movies too. When you focus too much on the plot or you focus too much on the story, you lose. There needs to be a good balance of both. Because if you're just focusing on the plot, you run into these. You sacrifice the characters for the sake of getting to the climax. You're kind of just rushing to meet this end point, and it doesn't have a satisfying conclusion. And if you focus too much on story, you drag the plot, and you're just, okay, we're still here talking with these people and these characters, they're great, but what's the point? What's the point of this? Where's the drama? Right? So you have to have two of those written together perfectly, and I think season 1 does it masterfully. I mean, we have characters like Vi, like Jinx, like Silco, and even in the beginning, in Act 1 with Vander, and it's all very. The plot is very tangible, but it's also very character-driven story. So you have this beautiful balance of characters that feel real and feel like their motivations are natural progression of motivations. Season 2 comes along, and immediately this is off. There's characters doing things out of character for the sake of the plot. Time jumps, the music videos constantly shoved into the middle of the episodes. And the thing about the music videos too, they, instead of adding to the story, they almost like detract from the story because they're showing you important montages of scenes, whereas in the first season, like take Echo and Jinx fighting on the bridge, and they have the music video. But it works because it complements what it's just their fight scene. That's a music video, but it also shows completely what happens. It shows what the characters are thinking. It shows what they were thinking about when they were kids and how they feel now about the fight. But it's just one scene. It's just Echo and Jinx and they're fighting. That's all it is. When you have season 2, you go over these huge time jumps through these music videos, and you're like, what is happening? Why are we jumping so far ahead? And why is this just a montage of clips? Oh, because the plot. The showrunners want you to just, okay, this is all happening really fast so we can get to here. And it's just so contrived and very unstable. And it's such a shame, especially when you have such a great balance of all of these factors that make good entertainment in the first season. And you can tell that they felt like they needed to rush through this. And I'll get into later why I think they rushed through it so much. Okay, so why does Arcane Season 2 feel like the love child of Transformers The Last Knight and Game of Thrones Season 8? They all three share the core same issues, even though Arcane Season 2 is much better than either of those products. They share the same problem. Too many ideas crammed into way too little time. Remember The Last Knight? It was... we had 4 movies, if you hate them or you love them, whatever, of kind of simple Transformers stories, right? We had Optimus and crew, they're on Earth, they're fighting the Decepticons, whatever. They should have ended in Dark of the Moon. Then we have Age of Extinction with Mark Wahlberg and what the hell is going on, right? But at least, right, Optimus flies into space. At least we are moving away. Maybe there's some good here. No. Instead, Paramount hired a writer's room, and they created this crazy concept, and they had all these different stories for the future of the Transformers franchise because they were trying to copy Marvel with this multiverse stuff, which coincidentally Arcane Season 2 also has this multiverse shit. God, fucking multiverse. And instead, right, Michael Bay goes in there and he's like, oh, what if we just throw it all in one movie? So here comes Transformers The Last Night, and it's ancient Transformer lore. The Transformers are in every point of history in the Earth. Oh, but there's also King Arthur, and there's knights. Oh, there's secret societies. Oh, yeah, now we have Bumblebee fighting the Nazis, and it's just everything all at once smashed into one movie, and it ended up, in trying to do everything, it did nothing, and it was terrible. And then we have Game of Thrones Season 8. Rushed character arcs, not as crammed in, obviously, as The Last Night, but these characters that we've built up for 7 seasons prior already started to lose the feeling of the previous seasons because they were off the books. And then all of a sudden, breakneck pacing, the storylines, they don't land. We have Daenerys going psycho in 20 minutes. It's just, it doesn't work. And while Arcane Season 2 isn't nearly as messy as either of these examples, you can feel the echoes of these problems, right? We have characters just teleporting to other areas and making, like, Caitlyn just joins Mbessa, then leaves Mbessa because, oh, Vi met her and she was like, oh, well, I was struggling. Like, yeah, I've heard the argument that, well, she was struggling with that over a long period of time. It's like, except we don't feel that long period of time because to us, the viewer, it's so fast that it doesn't land. It doesn't feel natural. 30 minutes ago, we're watching Caitlyn train with Mbessa. 30 minutes later, she betrays her because she wants to smash Vi again. It's like it's so badly written. It doesn't make sense. These characters aren't naturally progressing. There is no development. There should be entire episodes dedicated to the falling out that Vi and Caitlyn have and where they go separate. Season 2 feels like they crammed 4 seasons. And then all of a sudden we have this robot army apocalypse that Victor's doing, and it's just like, what are we doing? And then Jace is in, like, the space-time it just doesn't work. And on a conceptual level, it works if they had the time to build it. And you can tell that it feels like the show was naturally going to go to all these areas eventually. But it's so fast and crammed into one season that it doesn't work. And again, don't get me wrong, Season 2 isn't a complete disaster. The animation is amazing, the action is quite top tier, and has emotional moments that do land more often than not, even if they're fewer than the previous season, right? Unlike The Last Night and Season 8 of Game of Thrones, Arcane doesn't completely lose its identity. It still feels like Arcane when you're watching it. It's just weighed down by its over-ambition in trying to put too much into one season. It's like watching a gymnast attempt to do a quadruple flip and land awkwardly. It still impresses you, but you can't help but think, maybe stick to what you did before and worked really well. Why are you trying all this stuff that doesn't quite work? Or at least you didn't have the practice and time to build up to this ambitious of an ending. It doesn't feel earned. The ending doesn't feel earned for Arcane Season 2. It feels like, wow, we had one season of amazing character build-up and growth, and we want to see what happens, and then all of a sudden it's over because the apocalypse happened. It's not enough time. I think the perfect way to really cap this off is just to say, Season 2, I'm glad Arcane exists. I'm glad that we have a masterful first season, and I'm glad that there's a second season as well. But it feels like, unfortunately, the season spends way too much time setting up these multiple threads and then resolving them or not even resolving them in a satisfying way at all too quickly. And then you just feel, when the season ends, it doesn't feel satisfying. It feels like there was more here that we could have done, and it's untapped potential that could have happened. And, you know, maybe it's because they wanted to move on, like Game of Thrones writers did. They wanted to move on to something else. They wanted to move on to the other areas of the universe. Okay, cool. But that's, I think, the problem, right? Season 2 feels like much more corporate than the first season does. Season 2 feels like the company saw the success of Arcane Season 1. Oh, we need to add it to everything, and we want to get, instead of focusing on what makes this story of Arcane great, we need to get in all of our League of Legends. We need to start making shows for all these different League of Legends characters and blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, that's not... I don't like Arcane because of League of Legends. I like Arcane because of Arcane. I don't like League of Legends. I don't play League of Legends. I don't know anything about it when I watch the first season. And that's right. And a lot of people are going to like Season 2 because of these connections. And I understand that. I'm not trying to, ruin anybody's day or enjoyment of something they like. If you like this, eat it up. Do whatever you got to do. Praise it. I'm just telling you why I think it doesn't work for me. As somebody that viewed the first season and loved it for what it was, and it's a good stepping stone into a universe that I would have never looked into or had an inkling of an interest in. And then Season 2 rolls around and it's just absolute full bore, like, it loses itself. It loses what made that first season so engaging and interesting to somebody that wasn't a fan necessarily of League of Legends. It just goes full bore off the walls, and it just doesn't work for me. And I think it works for some people, but for me it just didn't work. And I'd like to wrap this up by saying, look, Arcane Season 2 is a good show. All of Arcane is an amazing show. It's just not, I just don't think, for me personally, it's the masterpiece. Season 2 was the masterpiece I was hoping for. And maybe that's my expectations being too high. But I still think the show tries to be so ambitious for concepts that I actually find could be enjoyable. But without the focus, the ambition totally backfires, and I feel like it just leaves it completely unsatisfying. But that's just me. What do you guys think? Is Season 2, did it live up to your expectations, or do you feel the same rushed energy I did, where they were trying to move on to different projects and leave these characters behind? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like and subscribe. And yeah, I don't do a lot of these video essays, but I think this Arcane was something special to me, and it was the first really fantastic animated show that I've seen in a long time, if ever. And I think it is really unfortunate that I didn't enjoy it. So, yeah, leave a comment, like, or disagree with me in the comments and why you think and why you think that I'm wrong. Whatever it feels like for you, dude. Anyway, yeah, have a nice day, guys.